Gaming Decathlon Gamer, welcome back to the weekly review special for week 31 of the Gaming Decathlon competition. This week I brought in 1,827 points, still well short of what we are used to, but there are so many new series on the channel that really only one is in a good place scoring-wise, so it is what it is. Also, all of the recent retirement games that are still showing up on here, as I have 7 active games right now. All 3 of those retired games. Well, they all retired with low scores. It's still better than last week's 17-13, but well short, almost 3,000 short of our best round score, which is now, 23 weeks ago, of 4,648. Current virtual best still heading the right direction. We're up to 2,133. But the all-time virtual best still unchanged, as I have had no active games in the all-time top 10 list for probably the longest stretch that I've ever had in the history of the channel. Both a good sign of kind of the direction I'm headed, meaning, I'm starting to get some pretty good scores up there, but also a bad sign of maybe a little too much reset and start something new trend, which is kind of still happening anyway. Breaking down the games individually, PCM 20, career mode, 161 points. We just started a new season. We're in March, and we're already half of our best score. I'm in the World Tour now. I was terrified by that fact when it happened. But I've done pretty dang well, all things considered, and we're accumulating points. So, turns out I was worried for nothing. But the big races are still to come, and those could be a real struggle, and we could definitely have our evaluation come down. But at the moment, I'm doing what it takes. And the all-rounder came to the end of my 2nd season of our career. We were still in Continental. We're going to be heading to Continental Pro just in the final week here, just these last 3 episodes. We doubled our score, which was already a record compared to last season. Last season, I barely was able to do anything. This season, 121 points is still very small. It is a very different playthrough than what I'm used to. But of course, the premise behind it, long story short, if you're not familiar, if you haven't seen the series, I'm developing everything across the board, turning my rider into an all-arounder, where they have to be able to do anything and everything. They have to climb, they have to sprint, they have to be able to do cobbles, they have to have stamina, they have to have recovery. I train whatever their lowest attribute is at all times. That slows the growth of my rider significantly. So instead of developing a specialty and getting good and then being competitive in whatever that specialty is, I have to develop everything. So catching up to the field is going to take a lot of seasons compared to normal. Usually by now, I'm winning a lot of races. I have won some. I think I have 6 career victories, I believe, off the top of my head. I had 2 in the first season. Very much flukes, but I pulled it off. It was breakaway win kind of stuff. And then I've had 4 this season, including authentic victories against other riders where I just tactically did it right, as opposed to fluke victories. So, I'm getting better. But it's still really difficult. Really difficult. But I'm starting to approach about 70 on most of the attributes. And that's kind of that break line where I think I can start doing more depending on the competition, which I have no interest on going backwards. But the funny thing is, it's really hard to go backwards. That they always want to push you forward to bigger and better and stronger teams, and I don't want to do that. I want to stay at a low level and get to that point where I can be competitive. Otherwise, we're just going to be a domestic breakaway rider forever. FS19 Valley Old Farm, finally, the scoring has happened. We sat on 0 points for a long time, and then we sat on 2 points for a long time, and then we sat on 9 points for a long time. Not only have I gone to 80 this week, which is a massive jump from 9, it's going to keep going. Reason being, we're finally at that stage where we're making the money. So scoring on that one, it's all about that debt. We accumulated a $3 million debt. We're trying to pay that debt down to 0 inside 1 year. Now, our first grass harvest happened, and then we bailed it all up, and then we shipped it all to the BGA, and then we had to wait 3 days. Well, that's all happened finally. So we just did an episode of processing bale after bale after bale after bale, and it takes time to process those bales, and we had hundreds of bales. So it literally took another 3 days to get through to sell all the bales. Now, I finished work off camera for that to get all of the bales sold off, but the 80 points that we have now is basically the halfway point of that process. And paying down the debt by the majority of the money that we made for that first half of selling those off. The second half of selling those off, well, that money is to come later. And without really giving anything away, now that it took us 3 days to go through and sell all those bales, we now have not only our second grass harvest ready to go, but our first round of crop. All the cereals are ready to harvest. So, in our next episode, we're going to be harvesting and mowing, and then we've got a whole lot more money coming from that. So, like I said, already this was only about half the money from the bales, so we're going to pay it down quite a bit more. But then all these harvests are coming, so the bulk of the money is right there. So this score is just going to keep climbing and climbing and climbing in the episodes that remain as we try to pay down this debt, and there's a chance that we'll get it done. Founder's Fortune climbs by 30 points as I continue. Most of that is seasons right now. Progression is a little slow right now as scrolls are hard to get. It's hard to get my hands on them. However, we finally have something that is earning us significant money in the colony. And that is healing roots or healing plants. I'm growing and then harvesting large quantities of those. And then I'm making medicine from them. And that illness medicine I'm selling for high profit. That profit is allowing me to reinvest in a few areas. One, scrolls, so I can actually continue research and get other research done, but also invest in the things I need for the colony. So we finally have a significant moneymaker to get what we need, and it's going to allow for rapid progress, but I've definitely reached that stage in the game where progress is much slower than it is at the beginning of the game. So, score's climbing, but it's climbing a lot slower now. NBA 2K20, I flew through another season. Our sophomore season was fantastic. We made the playoffs. We got to the second round of the playoffs. It was mostly a fluke. Didn't belong there. It was really surprising that we got there. We played above our ability. Flew through a third season. Only played 1 game, 2 games over the course of the season. And tried to make trades. I was trying to strengthen one position. And as a result, I messed with the chemistry. So that was the thing, and that's on me. Realistically, also, in what I was doing, the team played to our ability level, much more so. And we were essentially a 500 team, or thereabouts, and we just missed the playoffs. Just missed. Good team, getting better. It was nice, but we just missed the playoffs. And really, we were only a few games off from where we were a season ago. And that few games would have meant basically the same position in the playoffs. But the team looked a lot more like the team it should have been. A team that was still growing, still developing, still young. No star power yet. Maggette certainly growing in towards that role, but never going to be top player in the league. Just a really, really good all-star. But in his second season, he's not there yet. Give him 2 more seasons, and he probably will be. But that was always going to be a limited series, so that's it. It is done. That's why I flew through that season, just so we can get a little bit further and see what happens. Team was definitely headed in the right direction, and I made a lot of progress in those 3 seasons. And you could definitely foresee good things to come. But without 80 stars, we weren't going to be champions, and we certainly don't have that. And Maggette was going to get the right direction for that and get us maybe to 1 all-star anyway, but not superstar. And that still wouldn't get us to a champion, but we were probably a year or 2 away from being a team that was going to be a perennial playoff team, but probably not a home court advantage first round team. Probably a 5, 6, 7 season after season with the team we were growing into. So still had work to be done, but definitely made a lot of progress in just 3 seasons. F1 2020, we have the My Team principle. Loving that series. It's going really well. We just started season 2, and our score is not far off from where it was season 1. It'll definitely eclipse it as we continue to grow and build. I'm really liking that series as the AI functionality actually works properly this year, unlike previous seasons. And so I have full intention of going all 10 seasons, and if that is the cap this year or not, it's always been clear in the past that 10 years is the cap. Last question mark. First podium. Still in the first season. I've had to up the difficulty as a result, but we took 2nd place at the place where it's easiest to do that, which is Sochi. But still, I got a 2nd place. Immediately after the next race, missed the top 10 for the first time in a while, so no points. Partially, difficulty was higher, but I would have gotten into the points, I think, had I not slammed into the back of Kimi Räikkönen, destroyed my wing, got a 2-second time penalty, got past him in the move, but then completely stalled all progress from there because now I'm fighting a badly damaged wing for the last couple laps of the race, 2.5 laps, whatever it was. And so at that point, it was really just I'd pull away, and then they'd come back at me through the more technical sections where I didn't have enough wing to survive that. And then something fun happened that is still a bit of an issue, and I have to fix. My steering wheel, a Thrustmaster T150, has force feedback and has some internal components that add some realism. In this case, a busted wing meant that my wheel, instead of moving smoothly the way it's supposed to, tension is added to it. It is harder to turn that wheel. So I had only been about 1 second ahead of Räikkönen. I had a 2-second penalty. I was going to lose that position and possibly the position behind that, as Charles Leclerc had been held up in traffic as he had grid penalties to start the race. So he himself was out of the points. And unlike real life, where the Ferrari very much can be battling that midfield, in-game, it's still OP. They still have the best engine in-game. At this point, it has not been updated. So the Ferrari, his teammate, Vettel, won the race. Leclerc should have been, second or third or fourth, not 13th, 12th, 14th. I was running 12th. And so final chicane, Suzuka. I yanked the wheel hard right because I'm trying to get to that 2-second gap because I had straight line advantage. And I had pulled that 1 second gap to about a 2.1 second gap over that back straight. And I yank hard right, and then it's a tight chicane back the other way, so I go to yank hard left, and I ripped my wheel right off the stand. My keyboard stand is what I mounted to, and I ripped it right off. So, that was me. I did that. And by the way, while I held off Leclerc, Raikkonen beat me by less than 3/100ths of a second. So, there was that. I had to flash back because I went right off the road when that happened. But after the flashback, I did not yank on the wheel so hard because it was clearly messed up. And I did it very conservatively. And I lost a position as a result. I was outside of the points anyway, so it really didn't matter much. But, that was interesting. Anyway, long episode this week. Sorry about that. All-time virtual best side, no change. Founder's Fortune gained 30 points, but it's still 12th. However, it's now just 43 points away from cracking the top 10. It's 55 points away from jumping all the way up to 8th place, or at least equaling Broken Lines there in 8th place. So, if and when that happens, when I do crack that top 10 list, we'll go ahead and throw in a scoring feature on Founder's Fortune in this weekly review, so you can see exactly how I scored that game. And that does it for this review special. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Have a good week. Bye for now.